is your purpose here? How many of you are there?
Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week, the show where we do post-reaction to classic films from across time and genre. We have a couple of standard warnings in place. First of all, if you haven't seen the film, there will be massive spoilers. Certainly to the point where you might not even need to see the film. And secondly, truth mileage may vary.
Yes.
Spurious content may be contained within. Joining me as always, Dan Miller, Tom McGill.
Hello, hello.
And it's said that with all things narrative, ChatGPT has our final panelist on speed dial. Please welcome back to the panel, Rick Legato.
Hola.
Oh. Tonight we're taking a look at a piece of classic cinema. Now we throw the word classic around quite a bit. Sometimes a film is classic for all the wrong reasons. This particular film is classic for a couple of the good reasons, especially when it comes to its influence on well-known directors. And we're going to be taking a look at Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. And a big warning to the Japanese people and the Japanese culture. We're about to butcher your language over the next hour or so, especially when it comes to the pronunciation of certain characters. But certainly up there with our review of Firefox and how we butchered the Russian accent in a very classic way. Gentlemen, Dan, how did you find this film originally? Have you seen it in yay oldie times, or is this the first time you saw it?
I have indeed seen it in yay oldie times.
How old were you?
In the days of the VHS.
VHS tapes.
Yes, I don't know. I must have been.
Hence the
teens.
props on the table.
This is some of my VHS collection. Now, not all of my VHS tapes made it into the future where we are now.
Right.
But some of them did, and those are Akira Kurosawa films.
Am I right in thinking you have no way of playing them?
I have no way of playing them, no.
They just catch dust on some shelf somewhere.
I've still got a VHS player.
Have you got a VHS?
I have a VHS
Preserved.
player that you can convert into digital with.
Well,
Oh, that's very
But I'm
special.
afraid putting old VHS tapes into it, they might just crumble into rust
these
if
ones
you
are pretty,
play them.
they're in pretty good nick.
It's
They're in
the
pretty good nick.
magnetic tape
Yes,
of
that's right.
yesteryear.
Exactly.
The days of going up to the Blockbuster and
right.
well, it was pre-Blockbuster, wasn't it? It was Video Easy.
Video Easy, all of those type of places.
Getting 5 movies for the weekend and watching all of them.
Yep.
Who watches 5 videos on a weekend now? No one.
Oh, I don't know. The binge streaming.
Oh, well, yes, binging. Yeah, that sort of qualifies, doesn't it?
Those
Yeah.
for TV series, those, not for movies so much.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Just
Sometimes you'll binge a series of movies.
I've got a friend
sometimes
in
people will
Germany
do the Harry
who,
Potter.
who regularly does the once a year he does the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He invites people over and they just do this 11-hour marathon of
With the
food,
making
drink,
of
and-
as well.
The
it's
special-
they're
with the
watching
special
movies.
features,
The
that
special,
is-
special edition.
that
They're
is an
watching
outing.
The 3-hour version.
Yeah.
It's 11 hours all
Yeah,
up.
yeah, that's a crazy bit of that's commitment.
And once a year too.
What about you, Tom?
I thought I had never heard of it. I found it when I was looking at movies that we could do for the show. I think I was the one who suggested this one, and promptly forget why I suggested it. Then upon my research, remembered why. But then I upon watching it, I realized I had seen bits of it in documentaries.
All right.
I'd seen bits of it in documentaries on the history of film. So I went, oh, this is actually an important film.
It's important for, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of it, but it's important on lots of different levels, and certainly influence from and influence into Kurosawa's way of making films, and who he was influenced by as well. What about you, Rick?
I saw it for the first time about 6 hours ago.
Ooh.
Oh, you crammed.
Yeah, I crammed.
Okay,
So it's fresh in your
It's
mind.
fresh.
fresh.
Right, you'll be good
Yeah.
for the quiz, which we'll have coming up later. All right, gentlemen, we like to use the narrative beats of the story to drive our reactions / review of the films. And Dan, you're our master of narration. Where do we start with this one?
All right, so might be good to just talk a little bit about sort of characters, give people who haven't seen it just a bit of an overview of it, and then just start to talk about the story, and then just to discuss a few other things at the end.
Have we got a tagline?
I don't know if we've got a tagline. Does anybody know if there was a tagline for it?
I haven't seen one.
The IMDb have lured by gold, two greedy peasants unknowingly escort a princess and her general across enemy lines.
Sounds about right.
Okay, but that's a log line, just to be pedantic.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So the tagline
Is the elevator pitch of the narrative.
advertising thing. Yeah. So the log line. What was the log line? Can you read it out one more time?
Lured by gold, two greedy peasants unknowingly escort a princess and her general across enemy lines.
There you go. That's pretty good.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Sums it up.
Yes. So it's a black and white film, and it's in CinemaScope, so it's a mega widescreen,
Yes. 1958.
1958, and it starts in a kind of a desert, and the camera is following two characters as they're walking into the sort of desert, and they're having a bit of an argument.
And it immediately starts with a really long shot, doesn't it?
Very long lens.
Yeah. And also timing-wise, it's a constant roll, unedited, of them having their discussion,
Yes.
having a bit of a fight,
A long
bickering, which they continue through the entire movie.
Yes.
Yes. And then they turn around, and so they're talking about something. We'll talk about what they're talking about in a second. They turn around because there's something coming up behind them, and it's a samurai with his hair cut and his hair all
The expression on his face is lovely.
crazy, and he's like dirty, and he's like armor's all broken and smashed, and he's staggering, and he's looking at something that's coming up, and it's a bunch of horses,
Some cavalrymen
cavalrymen, and they kill the samurai.
with long pokey spears. He was hamming it up for the camera, wasn't he? It reminded me of
glorious.
the scene from Yellowbeard. Roll, roll, stagger, stagger, roll, roll. He certainly had the pantomime element.
But you know those old schooly, like super old schooly Japanese watercolors? They ham it up, right? The artwork in that, everybody's like crazy with crazy eyes and crazy hair. All right, so our two characters that we've been following, they're kind of then surrounded by the cavalry. And the cavalry look them over, and they don't, because the people we're watching are kind of scruffy people, and the cavalry then just gallop off. So they're left with a dead samurai in front of them,
Yes.
and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's the opening.
Opening sequence.
So what's going on is, because what I want to do is talk about the setup. What's the situation? What's happening in the...
What do we learn?
What do we know? Yes, from their conversation. What do we learn?
Well, they do the exposition talk. They talk about how, get away from you, you smell of dead bodies. And the other one says, oh, you're a stinky worm, you can't smell anything, you stink of body yourself. And they talk about how they, just ran away from a prisoner camp and had to bury bodies because they were caught by the army.
They were called by the army?
They went to the war
Yes.
Hoping to make a
hoping to
fortune.
make some money,
Hoping to
and
make
then
the
got
money,
mistaken as soldiers of the defeated army.
How were they going to make money?
We're going to
I'm not
plunder
sure.
the battlefields, weren't they?
I think
They were
yes.
going to rip off
That's
dead
right.
bodies
Yeah.
and steal anything they could find.
That's right.
Yes. And so this is our two starting characters.
So that's
Matashi
Yep.
and Tahe.
Tahe.
Yes.
Matashi and Tahe.
And it's worth noting moving forward that these two characters inspired George Lucas to tell the story of Star Wars from the two lowest on the food chain. And these two characters are represented in Star Wars as C-3PO and R2-D2.
Fortunately, C-3PO and R2-D2 aren't. In the words of one person I was checking out who was talking about this, aren't scumbags.
Yes.
Yeah.
One is made of gold.
One is
he would
actually-
sell himself.
That's right.
So, but what
actually
are
made
what
of
are some of the similarities though? They are usually the source of the comedy.
Yes.
They bicker all the time.
Yes, they fight each other.
And they bungle situations. They both get the story into situations as well as out.
Yes, yes.
In a
So there's a
very
lot of
bungling
similarities
manner.
there, definitely. And I believe that this movie probably influenced Lucas in more than just the mechanism of the two lowest characters. There was a lot of similarities in this film that you could certainly pick up, and one of them was their relationship of these two characters as well.
There's another one is that they're kind of like the witnesses to the story, but they're not really sort of participants in the story. It sort of happens around them, and there's like stuff's going on, and
They're not driving any of the narrative, really. They're just participating in it, dragged along, so to speak, via a larger story arc.
But they do bring the situation upon themselves sometimes. I mean, they're the ones who decide to do something really stupid, and that brings the narrative forward.
That's what I was saying. They often will create this situation by bungling a thing, or sometimes accidentally help by bungling. So the bungling kind of helps grease the story along.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about this that they're pretty, like they are kind of scumbags, right? They want to steal stuff.
Yep.
They even rip each other off, right? They argue. They fight.
At one point, they wanted to tamper with the princess.
They wanted to do. And when one of them suggested,
drew sticks.
Yes, one of them suggested for some tampering. The other one immediately thought, "Oh, okay, let's do that." It's like,
Draw short straws.
yes,
The interesting thing about us going ahead a little bit here, but they don't learn, right? It's not their hero's journey. They are bickering. They are greedy, and at the end, they're just as greedy still. They'd still sell their friend. The only thing they've done at the end that is a little bit different is when they walk off and they finally got a bit of gold. They no longer fight over that piece of gold. But they're still the same scumbags. They haven't learned much.
it's a bit like the Simpsons in that sense, that they're this eternal character. And it doesn't matter what happens in that Simpsons episode, it always just reverts back to them being the same. All right, so that's the basic setup. But there's sort of setup part 2 of the story, and that is that. What happened to them after that is that they then go into a town and there's a war going on. There's horses galloping everywhere and there's refugees everywhere and everything's smashed and destroyed. And they're sort of wandering, dazed and confused around in this town, and a bunch of prisoners come in, being led by guards who are like whipping them and yeah.
Well, they've split up as well.
Just like in Star Wars.
Just
they
like in
split up.
Star Wars, R2-D2 and C-3PO go their separate ways on Tatooine. Well, it's the same for these two characters. And the R2-D2 character, which is, what's his name?
Masashi?
No, the other one.
Matashi.
I always consider the guy
Tahi.
with... Tahi. He seems like he's the R2 character.
I always saw him as the 3
Mainly because he's short.
Yeah, same here.
He finds himself in the town and is reading...
He actually has to ask a wise man to read the sign for him.
Yeah.
That's right.
That says there's was it 200 gold
Reward.
Yeah.
reward
Yes,
for the princess?
for the
and
princess that's
3
missing.
fake information.
Yeah. So we're getting drip-fed little story nuggets happening.
And then he gets captured.
Yes.
They've assumed again that he is a fallen soldier of the enemy.
So how he gets captured is that the other prisoners sort of half escape.
Yeah.
And they all sort of
run towards him.
him.
Yeah.
And then they herd everybody back in, and he's now stuck.
Yes.
He's now a prisoner of war.
Yep. We haven't seen the other character.
All right. What happens to the other character?
Well, when he gets taken away with the prisoners, he is forced to dig in the palace or the fort for the missing gold, the
All right.
the hidden gold.
Yes.
The conquered provinces
Yes.
castle.
Yes, and it's only when the day shift is marched up the hill and the night shift is marching down the hill that they see each other again and realise they've both been captured.
That's right. So we get the two important story nuggets as well for the setup. It's about the princess and the missing gold.
Yes.
So they then the prisoners later that night, the prisoners all riot and they escape and there's gun firing, and there's
I was shocked when I heard the gun firing for the first time in this film because I wasn't expecting it. There's nothing about the clothing and the riding horses around, the sword play, everything. There was nothing that introduced to me a time period where they were using muskets. I guess they're using muskets.
The prisoners then escape, and then our two peasant heroes also escape. And we're now into the sort of final part of the setup, is they wander up into the mountains and they sit down and make a camp, and they're wondering about what they're going to do next.
Yep. They make a fire.
So something weird is going on in the fire, right? And they take one of the sticks out of the fire. He's adjusting the stick, and I think he smashes the stick.
He throws it, I think, and they hear a chink.
That's right. They hear a weird tink, tink, tink noise, and they wonder what's going on.
And they find
Gold in the stick.
there be gold in them, their sticks.
Yes, the sticks
And I
of
thought
gold.
to myself, how did you get the gold in the stick? And I imagined they were drilling a big...
From the
because
side.
they
and
had
filling
to
it.
smash the stick apart to get the gold out,
Yes.
right? When they realised there might be more, and
Yes.
they went hunting for more gold sticks.
So there's like rods of gold. There's
Rods
like
of gold
Firewood.
stuffed into the
Firewood
middle of the
size,
stick.
2 foot long.
Yeah.
Bits of stick.
Yeah,
Embossed with the conquered provinces.
that's right.
That's right. Yeah.
Akitsuki clan.
Yeah.
That's it, yes.
Akitsuki Crescent Moon.
Which is the missing princess's clan.
So, what do our characters do next? Well, they immediately
Bicker and fight over the.
bicker and fight over that, and then they just like rampage around,
Breaking every
smashing,
stick.
Yep.
smashing every stick they can find. See if they can find more.
They find a second piece which gives them the indication that there's more.
Yeah.
But it's R2D2 that finds both sticks with gold, and and then they bicker about sharing.
Yeah. Like he doesn't have to. He found them, so he gets to keep them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So while they're doing that, we meet our next character.
Mysterious character in the background.
Yes, up in the hills, who's been watching them. And, they're trying to keep the gold secret because there's some weird guy watching them. Anyway, that guy keeps hanging around, and he turns up, and they eventually have a bit of a conversation with him. So, what's the story, and who's the new character that we meet?
Well, we don't know anything about him other than he's a bold, sort of mysterious character.
Yes.
That doesn't have any fear of walking into their camp at night and sitting at their fire.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's
not like
he
a-
asks them, "What's your story?"
He's not like a military dude. He
Not
doesn't
really
look
at all.
like an army dude. He looks like a
no,
kind of a
but
peasant.
He's wearing
body
short
language.
shorts.
Very short.
Everybody is in loincloths, pretty
Yes.
much. The two characters that we are two main protagonists, Tahe and Matashi, they are wearing various levels of clothing throughout the film. They start with a half shirt. I think one of them, Tahe has just sort of
Almost
arms,
like armor on the top.
but the belly is naked, and then they have their loincloths below. And throughout the movie, they eventually, go back into just loincloths, and then they find some shirt somewhere, and they upgrade a bit, and then they lose that again. But it's a lot in the body language. Those two characters are always hunched over and always crawling or grubbing with their hands through stuff. And here is our, Toshiro Mifune's character, Roko, what's it called?
Rokurota.
Orokurota. And he is, the way he bears himself upright, chest out, one arm always on the side, usually both arms. The way he walks, and also the princess, they are always straight, always upright, always proud. So you see him, even though he wears beggar's clothes, you immediately notice that he has a very different presence.
A noble sort of presence. Yes.
And
People
powerful.
that have played Cyberpunk 2077 will recognise him as, I can't remember the character's name, one of the main characters.
Oh, really? That's interesting. He finds there's a lot of references to him in film.
Are we talking about
and he does-
the character in Hidden Fortresses in Cyberpunk 2070?
Both the character and the actor.
Oh, okay. Cool.
They've actually taken that
I didn't know that.
character.
Nice.
And he looks the same.
Yeah.
And his job there was to look after, I guess, which in Cyberpunk would be the princess's father. And the princess's father gets
okay.
killed, and then he appeals to the princess.
Yep.
But as soon as I saw those two here, I realised, that's where you get those characters.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
They
That's
found
cool.
their way into something else.
Yeah, that's cool. It's another example of influence coming from this film. But he asks the thieves, "What's this story?
Yep.
What are you up to?"
Yep.
And they proceed to tell him.
Yep.
That they're on their way to somewhere else.
Yep.
They can't get across. We've sort of glazed over the point where one of the thieves tries to get across the border, but it's guarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when he got nabbed. Yeah, that's right. So they've come up with a plan, and they draw it out on the dirt that we're not going to go across the border directly. We're going to go across this border
Into
then
enemy territory.
into enemy territory,
That's right.
and then go across the other border to get where they want to go to.
So their plan is that they are on the defeated side, and that's the
That's Akatsuki territory.
Akazuki. They're the defeated guys, and then there's the Yamana, which is the other guys, and so they want to get to a third place that's friendly.
Hayakawa.
With the Akatsuki.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
friendly.
they want to go to Lord Hayakawa,
Yes,
and they can't go directly because that border is guarded.
yes. So their plan is they're going to go straight into enemy territory.
Into Yamana clan territory, and then from Yamana clan territory, Yamana.
Yamana.
With the logic being they don't expect that border to
Yes.
That's not as
Yes.
they wouldn't
Yes.
expect us to go straight into the lion's den.
I must
Walk
say,
into Mordor.
does feel a little bit like a Blackadder type of plan.
Yes.
You know, no one would expect. You know.
Yeah.
And the general reacts favourably to the plan.
Yes. Well, we don't know
including,
the
crazy, it just
including a
might
loud
work.
cackle. He has a loud cackle at the
He
plan.
has a good laugh.
and invites them to travel with him.
Yep. Yeah.
And at which point they realise they can't keep hunting for the gold sticks, and they can't really refuse him because I think they're a bit scared of him.
That's right. So we're now we're now kind of finishing the setup. That's the setup. Except we've got one more piece to add, which is the princess, Princess Yuki. Up in the mountains, there is a hidden fortress. And so we've been talking about the Akazuki clan who've just been defeated, but the last of the Akazuki clan is up there, and that's the princess. And as we've just been discussing, General Rokuruta is the last general. So they're going to try and take the gold and get out of town, get to that friendly city. And I think the idea is that the peasants have given the good plan for how to do it. All right.
They've been holed up in the hidden fortress.
Yes.
And now they believe they have a way to escape.
So they're kind of thankful for the plan, and the general Rokuruta already kind of knows that the guys the peasants are really easy to manipulate because he just has to dangle gold in front of them.
He's going to use the greed against them.
They'll do anything he says, right? All right. So that's the basic setup. That's Act 1. Act 1 done. And that takes up pretty much close to half of the film.
I think it's important to note as well that the princess and the general are not known to the thieves as being those having those identities.
They think the general is a bandit.
Yes.
And
Yep.
he captured a woman, and she should be shared equally amongst all three
He did
men.
declare, she's my woman.
Yep.
She's mine, and if you go near her, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
But yes, her true
They think it's a bit
identity
unfair.
is hidden to the thieves.
And they've got the rest of the sticks with the gold all sort of stashed away. They're in a pond.
Yes,
They're
the general
hidden.
had them in the pond.
The general's got them. So essentially, they're going to get all of those sticks, and they kind of need the two peasants to carry more of the sticks because they can't carry all of the gold themselves. So they're going to need everybody, and they're going to head off on their way. There's one last part to the plan, and that is that the princess herself, they have to do something. She has to be in disguise.
Because her noble ways would give them away.
A
She's
noble
probably got some
speech.
sort of
Yeah.
posh accent or something
Yes.
or other that'll give her away. But she's no pushover, right?
No, indeed, she yells a lot of her lines.
Yes.
She's very abrupt, and maybe that's the nobleness. But maybe that's what they're talking about. But yes, they have to come up with a plan to conceal who she really is. What is that plan, Rick?
They end up doing a bit of reverse psychology
That's right.
and tell her, we need you to be mute, but we don't think you can do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And she accepts the challenge.
Well,
Yes.
she sees right through it.
Yeah,
She says,
yeah.
"You fool! Yeah, but fine. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll prove to you."
Yeah.
She is awesome. She's proud. She
Yes.
is. I love how she gets introduced because she's standing at the pond when the two
very
peasants go up to her and immediately smack their lips and go, "Ooh, look at her!" And she's always got her cane,
Yes.
her smacking whip with her.
Yeah.
She's not ever without that. And just how she walks away from them, right through them, and then uses the foliage to keep tumbling them up and throwing sticks and branches at their faces.
We get a little bit of insight into her upbringing as well, that her father brought her up as a boy or with boy skills, is what they
Yes,
say.
from one of the clan people.
Yeah, and so she's formidable. Rides. She's a good horse rider. She's no pushover, and probably some of the most impressive eyebrows in cinema history. right up there with Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, I was
she's got
just
some
about to say, if Gene Roddenberry also said he got influence from this movie for Star Trek, I would believe it.
Yes.
And the guy from Flash.
Ah, yes,
Oh,
Ming.
General Ming.
Ming the Merciless. So yes, if you want to know what her eyebrows look like, just think of Ming the Merciless. Yes.
All right, so the adventure begins. Basically, everything's kind of set up, and so the first thing there's a few different sort of elements that they go through. The first one is the river crossing. So they've got all of the gold. They're going down to go into the Yamana
I think, sorry, Dan,
territory.
just can we backtrack just for one? I think it's an important story point,
Okay.
which is the general's sister.
Ah, yes.
They learned something about the way that the general planned to secure their crossing by making everyone believe that the prince is dead and sacrifices his own sister. Essentially, she gets sent off, and we don't see it in the movie. We just hear that the princess has been found and beheaded.
Yes.
And when we hear that news, the general goes all solemn and sad and walks off. And that's when we then get introduced to the rest of the household, because he goes to the hidden fortress and there is an old nanny, an old groundskeeper. There's a few other people that work for the royal family there at the hidden fortress. And he says, yeah, the plan, the plan worked. My sister is being captured, and everyone thinks the princess is now dead.
Which is a good narrative device, isn't it? Because it teaches us something about him, but it also teaches us something about the princess.
Because she gets very upset about
She
it.
gets very upset
Very
about
unfair.
it.
Which indicates that she's not flippant with the lives of her people.
But this morality, this bound by honor and giving up your life for the people you serve is in very throughout the whole film. The nanny and the groundskeeper, they all sacrifice their life. In the end, the woman that they find later on will try to is utterly loyal to them after being saved.
Yep.
And that's why the peasants are so important in the story, because they give us that contrast. They show us, remind us how the greedy people are, and by contrast, the morality of everyone else is enhanced.
They only serve their own greed, the two thieves.
And throughout the entire film, I'm thinking they're going to learn from everyone else who is so loyal, but no, they don't learn anything from them.
Yes.
Well, a good example of their disloyalty comes up in as soon as they leave Hidden Fortress and they go down the hill, they've got to go into the enemy territory, which is across a river, and what happens is
General scouts ahead.
Yeah, the general's got to go scout ahead, find out what's going on, because they can see the border crossing, and there's lots of people, and there's a big bridge, and there's refugees moving through, and army men galloping around. And immediately the two peasants decide to
Just go straight across the river.
Still the horses of all the gold.
Well,
steal the horses.
they come up with the plan in front of the princess, and I think comedically, one of them says, "Shh, she can hear you." No, she's a mute. Is the answer. But they proceed to announce the whole plan of running away with the gold, sort of thing, and
No,
leaving.
what they're trying to do is they're trying to lie to the princess and tell her that they're just taking the horses off to have a bit of a feed in the paddock, right? And they're miming this out in the most pathetic miming ever. So they're trying to lie through mime. Anyway, then they wander off. And the next scene is a bit of a classic one where they're in the river.
Yeah, checking the depth to see where they can lead the horses across.
Yeah, yeah. And you can see the other bank of the river with up, and there's a sort of a hill on the other bank. And just as they get to about the middle of the river, about 5 or 6 people just sit up, and they've all been lying on the hill, and you couldn't see them, but they all sit up, and it's all the enemy guards are all just like 50 meters away. So anyway, what happens next? They have to go into town. Oh, they go and hide, and the general gets the horses back, and everybody's.
Well, they run back to where they left the horses and wonder where the horses are gone. And when they return, seemingly the princess hasn't moved. She's still sitting in the same place, and there's the 3 horses.
Yeah.
Which kind of hints at how able she is.
Yeah. So she's collected them. So they have a bit of a sit down, and I think the general has a bit of a think about how he's going to get in there, because now the alarm's been raised. And so they look over there, and there's all this army guys going bananas, and there's people going crazy. So what's the plan that he comes up with to get across the border with all of the sticks that have got gold in them?
The general. I thought this was a good moment to see the mindset of the general, right? Like a general really should be a tactics person, right? And see the opportunity, and basically he fools the commanding officer at the border post there.
The crossing border post.
Yes, by turning in, appearing to double cross the team. And turn them in and say, these horses are carrying all of the gold. Look, and he shows them some of the gold. Now I want my
He doesn't say
reward.
these horses are the gold.
No.
He doesn't tell them.
He just says he found one piece of
I
gold.
found
that's
one
right, yes.
over there.
That's right.
Over there, over that hill back there. That's where I found it.
That's
says.
right. And then demands the reward.
Yes.
And that's important that he demands a reward.
That's
for
right.
Believability.
Because they don't want to give him the reward, they shuffle him to the side.
And he makes a big fuss.
Yes.
Such a big fuss that the authorities actually push him out the door of
Yes.
the fortress
Yeah.
and enable his escape.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then they just casually walk off.
Yeah. Rather than, because if he was a bit quiet, they might have searched
Yeah.
the thing. So it was quite a good plan.
And I thought it was funny that 5 minutes later, the horseman rides in and says, "We're looking for a female and 3 men and 3 horses. They're carrying 200 pieces of gold.
Yeah.
If you see them, you got to control just the look on the guy's face." Oh, no, I haven't seen anything like that.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so the next scene is the night in the town. They spend the night in the town, and a couple of important things happen when they're in the town. One of those is that they've got to do something with the gold. What are they going to do? The town is filled with people. It's filled with refugees. There's people marching around. There's traders. There's army guys marching up and down everywhere. A load of noise and rabble and stuff. And so what's the general's plan for how you're going to hide the firewood, which is
Yeah,
gold
it's pretty
inside?
obvious. He's a smart guy. He says it's wood. Leave it out in the open. Just
Yes.
leave it lying
Put
there.
it with the rest of the wood.
Yeah.
It's again another insight into his general mindset. You know, the military leader's mindset of being. It's not enough to be a warrior. It's the smart warriors that become the generals. You know, to see those opportunities and to know the right thing to do in the moment.
I think it's the right thing to do in the moment. I think that's also part of his character, and the part of what's important about him is that he's got his shit in a pile, right? He's organised. He knows what's going on.
He's very, very resourceful.
Yes. Yes.
Thinking ahead.
Yeah, and he makes the right call at the right time throughout the whole film.
So while they're doing that, Princess Yuki, who's a mute, who's pretending to be a mute so she can't talk, is kind of wandering around the town checking stuff out. And she comes across a slave girl who's getting a bit of rough treatment.
She's in a bordello, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
she
a
goes
brothel.
to the brothel.
Yeah, and by brothel, it's nothing exciting. It's just
not
like
the
a
brothel.
shack.
It's not the brothel that you would see at King's Cross.
No,
It's like a shed.
Yeah. Yes.
it's a shed where people have soup, drink beer, and
Yeah.
buy women.
Yeah.
knows what- yeah.
And do something with their feet. I thought there was a weird scene where they also the men of the main crew that we're following in the film, they sort of walked in there, sat down, and they all proceeded to take their shoes off or do something with their feet. It was off camera, but all three of them were doing it.
Oh, maybe you
So
gotta
it
have
must have been some cultural thing that goes on in those.
no sandals in the shed.
Yes, yes. So the princess is looking at the environment and the scene and the people from outside of her normal persona as a princess. Right? No one knows who she is, so she gets to see from the other perspective. She's starting to see the world from another perspective. And I did see something in a documentary relating to the film and Lucas's. Not so much Lucas's influence by it, but the premise that what is it? 30. There's only ever 38 stories, and we just keep revolving around. And well, one of them is the swapping of live in the other person's
Shoes
and walk a
or-
mile in their
yep,
shoes.
yep.
And this story is sort of a lot about that.
That's her character arc. That's what changes her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is important. For
And,
her.
and so she sees a lot of the mistreatment of the women, and the brutality of it all, which she would never normally see.
So she kind of said that back in the cave when she realised that the general's sister died for her, and she said, what's her? She's not different from me. Why did she have to die? And now when she sees the slave girl, she says, we got to buy the slave girl. We got to save the slave girl.
She learns that the
essentially.
slave girl is her clan. She learns that it's
That's right,
Akizuki
yeah.
clan, and that sort of kicks her into gear a bit.
Yeah, so
It's one of her people.
so she wants to save the slave girl, and I think the general says that's dangerous, that could get us in trouble.
Yes.
But she says, nope, we're doing it. We're doing it.
Yep.
Another important thing happens there at the town as well.
A guy comes.
Just
Yeah.
a dude.
A guy comes past and says, "I'm going to buy your horse now,"
Yes, you peasants.
and shoves
He's a-
some money into their hand and
Yeah.
takes the horse.
Yes.
He's like a high-class sort of samurai guy. Yeah.
Your horses are too good for
Yeah.
pack mules.
Yeah.
I shall have them.
Yes. It's like, imagine you had a car and, some rich
Exactly.
dude walks up and says, that's a nice car. I should own that. You shouldn't own that.
And the next scene is you walking up the highway.
Yeah. That's right. But he paid for it, though.
Yeah. But they still don't have any way to carry the gold sticks now.
That's right. So they don't have, So,
So they managed to get their hands on a cart to carry the
Probably with
to
the
carry
money they
wood.
got for the horses.
Yes.
But it turns out well in the end, doesn't it? Because now the armies that are following them are looking for 3 men, a woman, and 3 horses. And now we are instead 3 men, 2 women, and 1
And a
cart.
cart,
So
yes.
they do not get recognized.
So this is one of the cool things I liked about the movie, the sort of transformation that their little band keeps changing, or the gold keeps changing form, as it's moving through. So next story element, and we're now, we're getting through the story. The next story element is they're on the road. Now they've got the cart because they haven't got the horses anymore. And Masashi and Tahi are now complaining that they're the horses, right? Because they're at the front pulling the cart.
They wish they had the horses again.
Yeah.
And then up rides some cavalrymen who inform them that we're looking for one woman, 3 men, and 3 horses.
Yeah.
If you've seen them, there's a reward. And then they ride off down the road. And then the 2 thieves are quite happy with the cart then.
Yeah, yes, they're quite happy. Yes, exactly.
And actually, that's a big thing in this thing is people not being what they're supposed to be. Like the general is hiding, who he is. The princess is hiding who she is. The peasants, well,
They are what they are. They have
they are.
nothing else to be.
but it's that everything's in disguise. Everything's there's that element of trickery, and that goes from the beginning of the film pretty much right through. And these guys even talk our 2 peasants. They did mention that they sold their houses
yeah.
to buy some soldier gear.
Yes.
Yes.
So they could go to war and
Steal shit.
and steal shit. So even they were pretending to be soldiers.
Yes.
True.
But they as they complained, they turned up one day too late and got mistaken for the defeated.
Yes.
So it's all about that trickery and
It's done really well in this movie because I'm thinking about other trickery type things that we've had in other types of movies and can get very confusing in the plot. So I think this one's done really nice and cleanly. So
It was one of
it's
the
not
films
tricking us, the audience. It's tricking the people, the characters in the film.
for Akira Kurosawa. It was an important film to make because he had been very successful with the Seven Samurai, and since then had money at Toei Studios, I think it was that he was working for, and got to make his own films that he wanted to do, and they were depressing films about post-war trauma and. Did not make a lot of money, and he was he'd used up all his favors and all his goodwill with the company, and he realized he has to make an adventure film. I have to make a film that is easy for everyone to understand, that's a bit of fun, a bit lighthearted, and just a good old romp.
Yeah, not an art piece where people scratch their head and wonder what the hell they're looking at. Which
So
is
it's a
some of
story
his
that we
earlier
can all
work.
follow. It's not overly complicated, and it's fun to watch and entertaining and fast-paced.
But it also the thing that I think was very influential is it's funny. It can be a little bit brutal. It's got action. It's got a bit of darkness here and there. It's got a bit of thrills.
Yep, it ticks the boxes.
It ticks a lot of the boxes, which it's kind of what George Lucas brought in.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. But it's done well.
Yeah, it's done very well.
It's not shoved down your throat. And I think you're right. A lot of that secrecy that's going on in the plot is we're in on it as an audience, right? And it's not some secret revealed later on that we should have known that we had no way of knowing. Everything is quite there, and you get to follow it and understand that person doesn't know that about this person, and you're part of the storytelling process. So I thought it was very economical.
Kurosawa knew what he was doing. He knew it paid off, right? This was one of his biggest successful films, like financial.
Yep.
And
Not too good in its American box office release. I think it made $46,000. $46,000 is all it made.
No.
But I can imagine across time and also domestic release in Japan, it was very successful.
It was the highest grossing film that year. In
I
Japan.
I don't know. I would get confused if it was his fourth most successful or the single most successful film. One of the two.
It's a 60-year-old film and it still holds up.
Yes.
You know? So
Yep.
So this guy knew exactly how to make a film. Like, he's a bit like Steven Spielberg. If Steven Spielberg wants to make or James Cameron. If those guys want to make a movie just for the fun of making money, they know the recipe. They know how to make a film that audiences. It might not be a great movie.
Well, we spoke
But it's gonna be
earlier about
entertaining.
influence, and people have been influenced by Kurosawa, but Kurosawa was influenced by some of the great Hollywood directors. Is it
Ford.
John Ford?
John
John
Ford,
Ford,
West Ends.
who did, but also did some of the big stage pieces, like
some about Civil
some of
War.
the Roman pieces as well. I think that John Ford did some of those big stage pieces, blockbusters. So he was influenced by Western cinema, and then a lot of Western directors were influenced by his adaptation or his influenced sort of palette.
Yeah, there's a sort of a conversation that's going on between the two, bouncing back and forth with ideas.
And this film is also good to watch just for the cinematography, for the landscapes. Like, this is, as I think Ricky said at the start, that this is the Kurosawa's first film that he's done in widescreen. And he uses it, he milks it. There's this one shot where those two peasants, this is still at the fortress, and they've been digging around in the dirt again, and they're sort of having an argument amongst themselves, and they keep walking towards the camera, and the camera goes backwards away with them, and they're sort of at the farthest edges of the screen, and in the middle you see the building, and this is one of those long shots again. And you go, if anyone watched that on, the olden, when we watched movies on
4:3.
television, they were cropped in 4:3. It's impossible. You
couldn't do it because you didn't
couldn't do
get 'cause you didn't get black bars in 4:3 television. So you're right, they'd be gone.
Yeah.
You'd just be looking at a building.
Normally they would rearrange the footage a bit.
They
You
would.
can sometimes see
they'd
them
have to
traveling.
recut it.
But in this shot, is no way.
Yeah, and also some of his composition, like maybe very un-Western. Like it's not what we do. Like I saw, like one that jumps to mind is when the peasants found that spring and they're thirsty and they drink, their heads, as they're lying down, are at the very bottom of the screen, and we're getting most of the pond rather than them.
Yep.
Which is, if it was a Western, they'd be the focus.
There is
But
one
here it's the
director
stream.
that I can liken to some of the camera shots from this film, and that's Sergio Leone, right? The spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
They feel very long, massive vistas, big wide screen vistas, followed by a extreme close up with a long lens of a guy's face, and then a big wide screen again,
Yeah,
and then
it reminded me a lot of that. Like that scene that you were talking about was very. It almost needed the.
And if you
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
and why was that, right? Why was widescreen all of a sudden a big thing? This is 1958. When did television come to Australia?
60s.
1956. So, and in America it was like 10 years earlier or so. So this was, TV was coming, and the cinemas and the film studios were worried that they would lose their bread and butter. Why would people go to the theater? Why would they go to the cinema if cinema is at home?
They had to find ways.
They have to find something to make cinema special, and that's why CinemaScope,
Color.
anamorphic, all that's this by big vistas, these big things on the big screen is something that you couldn't get at home on your 4x3 television.
Yeah.
Considering we're off on this cinematography tangent, there's another element to it as well, is extreme close-ups.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the gigantic vista where you pull back and you see everything. But like, for example, in one of the shots where the two peasants are scrambling up a hill, right? They're just like scrambling, falling down and scrambling. The camera gets tighter and tighter and tighter until you're right in their face, like right up on their face, as they're just furiously scrambling up the hill. And it sort of denotes that they're just only focused on doing that task. But yeah, he's the contrast again, right? So he's not afraid to come right in and just stay there, but then pull back out for those giant vistas as well.
Yeah.
I actually saw on the advertising there, I was going to ask you industry people, what's Toho scope? Was that like?
It is the Japanese equivalent of anamorphic.
Yeah.
So this is a
So
lens
it's anamorphic widescreen.
because the film, the celluloid film was only a certain width. And so different methods were used. So there was one where the camera was held sideways so that you could do the long widescreen without using the celluloid is only 70 millimeters or 35 millimeters, right? It's a certain. So one way is to go it sideways, but the problem is then cinemas have to have sideways projectors, very expensive. The other thing is to put a lens on which is not round but squashed sideways. So when the light gets put on the film, it gets squashed. And that's anamorphic.
Anamorphic lens rather than a perfect circle. It's more of an oval sort of. It's stretched.
And then that's easier to update in cinemas because all you need to do for the projectors is put a different lens, a projecting lens on the front, so it's cheaper to convert. So there's all these different systems, and then Japan copied that. That's their
One of their
version
standards.
of anamorphic.
I don't know if it's related, but it might be that sometimes up in the corners, the focus is a bit soft.
I was going to bring that up. Now we recently watched
Andor.
Andor. And Andor is largely shot digital, but we picked up on a lensing anomaly that, say for instance, if I've got Dan framed in a shot and his eyes are in focus, anything that's in the same plane as his eyes should also be in focus, right? But around the bottom and the top, it was out of focus. Now, it matched perfectly to whatever lenses Lucas used in the 70s to shoot the original Star Wars, which gave it that 70s feel, right? It was beautiful.
So we're assuming it's a post-process.
It's probably a post-process.
that they did to make it.
Yeah, it's really just an over-the-top thing because it doesn't care how far away the object is. Normally, blur, when you focus on something, blur changes relative to the depth. But this seemed to be over the top of the bottom and the top.
This is on Andor.
It's in this film, right? There is shots in this film where something is in focus, but the bottom of the person is out of focus, and it's almost like they use the same lens.
Yeah, check out Andor and
Interesting.
keep your eyes open for around the edges of the screen where it goes soft, which, I think is deliberate to make it look like one of these type of films.
Yeah.
So, getting back to the movie, we're kind of almost through the description of the narrative. They're on the road, and they just got past the patrol. They tricked the patrol, and the patrol gallops off down the road.
That's right.
And they're like, yes, glad we sold the horses. But then a few minutes later, the patrol comes galloping back up the road again.
You can imagine the conversation that happened up the,
Yeah,
up the
they were
road
like-
with the patrol.
Wait a
Hang
minute.
on, they got sticks. Didn't they? But also, they only sent three guys back, and eventually those 3 guys they get dispatched. What was the rest of the patrol thinking when their 3 scouts didn't return? That
Yes.
never.
No, I think they send all of them back because when they come back,
Well, he kills 2
yeah,
and then
kills a
3
few
ride
of
off.
them, and then a bunch of them ride off.
Oh, was it all of them?
Well,
I thought
I
that-
guess-
maybe
I
I'll
don't know, I
have to
guess
watch
so.
it again.
So anyway, the end result is the game's up. The jig's up. So immediately the general does a bit of sword stabby, and then
Springs to samurai action.
springs to
It's
samurai action.
One thing we had not mentioned yet, but he's in rags. We said, but
He carries
also-
no weapon.
He carries no weapons. All he's got is a little
utility knife.
a fly swatter or whatever he carries with him, but he has no weapons. So the way he fights with people is by quickly disarming them and then using their weapons against them.
Yeah.
Which is quite successful.
Yeah.
He dispatches 3 and then rides off against
Yeah, so
3.
2 of them ride off. So he says, well, I've got to go and kill those guys. So he has to jump on a horse. And now we've got a horse chase.
And that
A
horse
speeder
chase,
speeder bike chase if you
Yeah,
do
it's
a
the speeder bike chase.
that horse chase was. It's always the two horses running wide shot, then a close up of the hooves, then horses running wide shot, close up of the hooves, always left to right. It goes for a minute like that, where you just see the different. They're just running. And what's the idea here? I mean, he has. The only way to catch up with them if he has the faster
He's
horse.
got to have the fastest
He's
horse.
got to have. He doesn't know that he has one.
No.
He stands upright.
Yes.
Upright standing on the horse with his katana over his head.
Yep.
In a beautiful heroic pose. It's the most silly pose you can strike if you want to catch up with someone. You want to have the smallest surface possible.
You want to be more streamlined
Yes.
and have a kind of a...
But yeah, he knows that his horse is the fastest somehow and catches up with them and kills them.
All right, I'll come up with a reason as to why the guys up the front are scared. So they're not riding properly. Some of them are actually turning around
Yes.
to like look at him and
I know
and
what you
whatnot.
mean, yes.
This is my narrative solution. It's
I
not
actually thought the same thing, and my answers was that.
yeah.
They're in armor. He's just in rags.
Good point.
And I think he's crazy. No, because he actually lets go of the reins and stands up.
Yes.
And does that crazy step. I think that wild riding is supposed to denote he's just the
fury.
the safety off,
Yep.
and letting the horse
Yep.
go.
Yep. Letting the horse have its head.
Yes.
as they say.
Taking the safety off the horse.
So he dispatches the 3 riders. I believe it's 3. I think 3 took off. And
No, it was only 2.
Was it only 2?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. 3, 2.
Did you
No
watch
matter
the
that, they're all
film?
dead.
It could, yeah. That sounds familiar. At least 2. But anyway, he dispatches them.
Including killing the very last one.
Yes.
Yes.
And rather than do a Yui
Yes.
and go back to the group, he takes a big wide left turn
Yeah.
into a massive camp of soldiers
Yes.
and finds himself surrounded by 60 people with long spears.
Yes. So he's quick, but he's kind of not quick enough.
Yes.
Or maybe too quick because he couldn't stop in time and ended up right in the middle of everything.
And it felt almost accidental, didn't it?
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
shit.
pretty much.
It crept up on me. The end of that sequence where he heroically dispatched the very last one. You thought, dun, 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 he's done it. But there was more.
It's out of the frying pan
Yeah,
into the fire.
Into the fire, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and the leader of this plethora of soldiers screams out to his men, "Don't bother trying to kill him. He'll kill you all," sort of thing. He literally puts the mockers on any idea of trying to take him out, and then battle a one-on-one
his
battle
old nemesis
ensues.
or his old friend, and then
They know each other.
they know each
each other,
other,
yes.
and this is General Totokoro.
Yes,
And yes, he challenged. So now they've got him caught, and they say, I wish I had met you in battle, not here amongst captured amongst my men. That's silly. Let's duel.
yes,
As you do when you're a samurai, I guess.
yes.
Yeah. And they have a duel with spears.
And it's not just spears, Dan.
No?
It's screaming at each other,
Oh, yes.
right?
Okay.
And posturing,
Yes.
and posing,
Yes.
followed by rapid spear work, and then more screaming and posturing and posing.
Yes.
and then a little bit more rapid spear work.
Yes.
But the general is too good with his screaming and posturing and posing, and his rapid spear work.
And they generally destroy everything in the vicinity as they fight.
Yes.
But eventually, our hero general is Rakuruta is victorious.
Yes.
And he disarms. Essentially, I think he smashes the other
Breaks
guy's
the spear, yeah, and at
spear.
that point, Tadakoro knows that he's lost.
Yes. So he
And
sits down and
Sits
says,
down, waits to be beheaded.
"Yes, please behead me immediately." But I think if the general Rakuruta jumps on his horse, and I think he gives him a big grin and then just buggers off.
Yes.
But if he did kill him, then everything would have calmed down, and then there would have been all of those other guys standing around who'd be like, "Okay, so now what do we do?"
Yeah.
So that would have been a bit awkward. So anyway, he had to bugger off. All
So
right.
he rides off back to the group.
Yep. And so we're getting close to the end now. We're into the next section where they go into the forest, right? They go and hide in the forest. They've got to take a bit of a breather after all of that stuff. The game's up. They've got to be a little bit more sneaky.
The crew go into the forest without the general, and they find a fire festival.
That's right.
But just back up. I think they all go in there.
Because I thought the general turns up to the fire festival right at the moment where people are trying to take the wood from the cart and chuck it on the bonfire.
Well,
no,
and they're trying to stop them.
The rain scene in the Sleeping Princess comes first.
That's right. They
So he's off because
hold up in the rain for a few days.
Yeah,
aren't
they
they?
hold up somewhere. She's sleeping under a ledge. The two peasants are sitting in the rain. The general is with the sleeping princess, and they said, "Well, it's a bit suspicious here. We need to get the gold out of the wood. I'm going off to find a way to carry that." And so he walks off in search of 2 barrels, essentially.
Some way to change their look. So instead of a horse and then a cart, he's going to try and find some barrels.
Off, leaves the and the other girl, the prostitute that they burned, she's off.
The slave girl is
She's
there.
finding stuff.
Food
she's
and
not
stuff.
there. She's
Which,
gathering
which
food
leaves R2D2 and C3PO with the princess.
with the princess.
Yes.
And that's where they think, well, she's sleeping, we're horny,
Let's draw straws.
let's draw straws, and the one who loses gets to disappear for 30 minutes.
Yes.
Yes.
Which almost comes about until the slave girl turns up with a big boulder.
With a rock.
Sees the look on their face.
Yes.
Picks up a rock and puts herself between the peasants and the
And
princess.
she, at this point in time, while she was away gathering, has learned that they're being followed, that there's a reward on her head.
Yes.
So there's this brief moment where she's amongst all the people and she has the knowledge and she has been essentially offered the reward, and all she needs to do is turn them in.
That's
And
a good
she
point.
points at that point and goes quietly away and stays loyal.
So apart from not turning them in, she also learns who they are.
She learns who they are, and she
Yes.
learns that sleeping woman is in fact her princess
Yes.
of her clan.
Yep.
Yes.
So then the peasants now don't have anything. Their plan, let's say, was a little bit disrupted. They can hear some strange noises in the forest and some people shouting. And it turns out to be some religious weirdos
That's right.
who are marching through the forest. And they're off.
They
to a
all
festival.
have firewood. So here's our heroes carrying
That's right.
firewood, and there's a bunch of fanatics carrying firewood to be burned. And what do our peasants think is a great idea? Oh, let's join them. That's good cover.
Yes. Yes. So the peasants decide to double cross again.
Yes.
Yep.
And they join in with the festival, and so essentially, then everybody ends up at this festival.
Except for the general, who still thinks that they're holed up in the rain at the cave, or the mini cave.
But he eventually tags.
He works out.
Finds out.
He works
and
out that they're there.
Yuki and the slave girl and everybody ends up down at the festival.
Yes.
And it's a bit dicey because they've got all the firewood, and all the firewood's going to be burned in a gigantic mega festival.
And the enemy army is there
And the
looking for
army is
people who
there.
That's
behave
right.
out of character.
Bad guys everywhere.
Yes. So there's lots of singing and dancing at the festival.
And a bunch of hippies decide, we need your
Firewood.
we need your cart full of firewood to go on the fire.
Yes, and the peasants are sort
And
of
they try to stop it. And then the general rushes in and
Yes.
says, no, burn it.
burn it all.
Tip it on there. And because he realizes that the gold's safe, provided that they can get the gold out of the fire pit after everybody's gone.
That's right.
But it also means that they're not going to give away their identities as well. They just join in with the hippies, and then the soldiers will go away.
And Yuki dances with the peasants and sings and has a good old time again.
Yeah,
with the,
yeah.
the normal
Lives
people.
lives outside of the nobility of her
right.
normal life once more.
That's right. So at the end of that, the fire thing that wraps up. All the hippies leave. There's no more marijuana left, so they all like bugger off, and the heroes dig all the gold out of the fire pit, and then they start heading off into the forest because they're now very close to the border, which is where they want to be. And we're into kind of the final stages, which is the fog in the forest. It's all foggy in the forest, and there's the enemy army is inside the forest with them.
Yes,
And they got horns like fox hunting.
Yeah.
they're on them.
Have we caught the 2 enemy soldiers yet?
Yes, they pick up 2 enemy soldiers. Yes.
right.
Oh, sorry, I was
No, that's happening now.
happened very
Right
quickly.
now.
Okay, so
Breaking.
So they're digging through the ashes. They find all the gold, and they see the enemy. Oh yeah, that's right. They hear the horns, and they go, "Oh, they're coming. We gotta hurry up. There's more to dig. Now we gotta take what we can, leave the rest." And so they all have more weight now than they used to have because the horses are gone and the cart is gone. So they have to carry it. So these 2 peasants have so much they cannot. I think that he
can
says
barely
like
stand up.
the 2 peasants carry 30 kilos, I carry 40, and the 2 women carry 20 each, and they can't even stand up with their packs, and yet they still try to grovel for more, and then they go off for 100 meter, 200 meters, and those bloody idiots turn around.
There's more gold.
There's more gold. Cannot leave it. They turn around and scramble back through the ashes while the other 4 people are looking the other way. The other 3 people.
I must admit, when I'm watching the movie and you hear General Rakuruta says, "We don't need all the gold. Just take what we can carry. Leave the rest." And I'm like, surely you can just get a little bit more.
That's exactly what got them into trouble.
Just
There's
you've got
always
pockets.
a little bit more.
Anyway, okay, so they pick up a couple of soldiers. And
Well, yeah, it's a
enemy
funny scene.
soldiers.
They're rummaging through the ashes, and then these 2 soldiers shuffle past, just 2 of them, and they sort of watch as those peasants are sort of trying to walk away slowly,
Yeah.
and then start running.
trying not to look suspicious.
They don't look suspicious for they look as suspicious as a
So
frog
anyway,
inside.
they end up running into the forest saying, "Help, help, help!" And the general comes and sorts it all out, and they end up with 2 more people who can carry
they
stuff.
have 2 prisoners now, and they can carry the gold. Yeah.
All right, so it all kind of wraps up. They're on a mountain or on the side of a hill, and they can kind of see
Where they're heading.
their destination,
Yep.
the Yamana, just over there.
Yamana are the bad guys, so this is Hayakawa.
Yeah.
But Hayakawa, sorry. And there's all the enemy army on the left, on the right, and they're and it's getting worse and worse.
All looks lost.
All looks lost, and I don't know. All kind of is lost.
It is.
Yeah,
They get captured.
The
They get
prisoners,
captured.
the prisoners escape. The prisoners run out. It's sort of like a First World War ditch. Everyone's sort of in hiding, and we know that as soon as we pop our head over the edge, we get sniped.
Because they got guns.
Yep, because they have guns, and the 2 guards take that as an opportunity to quickly warn their comrades. So the 2 guards run off and run over the no man's land towards their comrades, saying "Ah!"
Yep.
waving their arms, and promptly get gunned down by their friends.
That's right. Now, do the thieves, R2D2 and C3PO, have they split off away from the group here?
They use that opportunity.
Because they don't get captured.
No, they use that opportunity to run off as well.
They run off at this point as
they,
well.
They hide. They pretend to be bushes.
They
Yes,
pretend
they
to
do
be
too.
bushes.
They do too.
They have camouflage.
And
Yes.
the general says, "I'm going to run decoy. I'm going to let them shoot at me so you can escape." And then the slave girl says, "No, let me." And then she runs in. And then general runs after, and everyone gets shot at. And she gets wounded.
Yes.
And she says, "Leave me. I'm not worth it." And they carry her out of there, and they take the princess, and they get, captured.
Yep.
Except for our 2 peasants who are bushes.
Yes. And once more, wandering aimlessly in the landscape
With nothing and
with nothing to show
Back to
for it.
back to their loincloth again.
No
I'm
gold.
sure.
So we start to wrap up the conclusion where we've got our heroes now. They're tied up. They're in the enemy camp.
Slave girl, general, and princess.
Yes, and they can see just over there.
Actually, we've missed a bit.
Yeah.
because the peasants don't see the general captured.
No.
And they come up for plan. The only way
That's
they can
true.
they can stop the whole adventure being a disaster is if they go into town and inform
and rat on them.
and rat on their former
Yes.
comrades.
Yes,
So
exactly.
another opportunity to double cross.
Yep.
Yes. But anyway, the heroes are all tied up, and their fate is sealed.
And the peasants are laughed at when they turn up and provide and
Yes.
inform.
That's right.
because they're
We've
all
already caught
caught.
them.
Yes. Yes, that's right. The peasant, they then walk out of the town kind of dejected again.
Yep. Now, with the three, with the slave girl, the general, and the princess tied up, in walks General
Who can pronounce it, Tom?
Tarokoro.
Tarakoro,
Tarokoro.
who had the earlier battle, the earlier
The
one-on-one,
fight,
The
the
duel.
spear
who
fight.
was denied death.
That's right.
The
On
gentleman
honourable
on the
death.
screen there for anyone.
Yes.
Yes, this guy.
watching.
He walks in, severely scarred from the punishment he received for letting the
For not getting killed.
for not being killed and letting go the general, the enemy.
Yeah,
general.
having him in his.
Yes,
Rokuroda.
letting him go and not getting killed
Yes.
himself.
Yes, he
And
let
not too bad.
Rokuroto
Rakurata.
Rakurata let him go.
Yes.
And
Science.
so therefore he was punished.
Yes.
But he obviously still kept his rank or some kind of rank because he was able to walk in and talk to the prisoners.
In fact, it's his job to identify.
Yeah, he
that
was
they're
there
the
to
real
identify.
one.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes.
So the decision is made at some point to take the prisoners back to home base of the enemy, including all the gold. They load up some horses with all the gold, still in sticks. No,
No, it's just
in bags, just
Yeah.
gold.
because they're not sticks anymore.
They're melted bits
so
of
they're all-
Yeah.
gold.
So they're like golden nuggets.
Yes, onto a couple of horses. And yes, the decision is to take said gold and prisoners back to home base.
And before they do, the princess has a bit of a lament about how things are a bit shit right now.
But her last days were an adventure, she said.
Yeah, but, she liked the hippies. The hippie festival was
yeah,
good.
And she
Got to
sings
sing.
the morbid hippie song.
She
Yeah,
sings
got
the
to sing
hippie
it.
song. Yeah.
She was
She
digging
says,
it.
I'll die tomorrow, but I'll die happier than otherwise because I got to live the life of my people.
And see the beauty and the ugliness. She says.
Yep, poignant.
And good old General Scarface, what's his name?
Tarokoro.
That's your job, Tom.
Tarokoro.
Tarakoro. He's a little bit moved.
Yes,
He's thinking like, here I am being a general.
because he's pissy that he was left alive by
That's your job?
Rakurata.
Kurata. Left him
Yes.
alive. He was pissy, but at the same time,
There's a bit of respect there.
deep down, there's
and
respect.
And also the princess says that his leader is a fool for beating him for that. Losing to your enemies, not saying to punish someone for.
Yeah.
Yes, and they did beat the crap out of him.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, why am I hanging out with those guys? Maybe I'll hang out with these guys. So that's definitely on his mind.
Yes.
But I think the final part is when they're on the horses and they're all being about to be marched out of town, Princess Yuki turns around and gives him a bit of a look and says, dude. And he says, all right, fuck it. And he just like stabs all of his former friends. And then he says, run,
Yeah.
and then they all jump on they're on the horses, so this is all of our heroes, they run.
And the General Tarokoro is willing to remain behind and hold them off and essentially do the.
says, don't
get
worry,
the-
I'll die here.
I'll die here. And
Have a good life.
She says, no, you can come with us and live.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that then. Didn't know that was an option.
That's exactly what I thought. So it didn't cross your mind, do you? That was
Yeah.
an option.
And meanwhile, we've got the two thieves that have gone a little distance away from the town, and 3 horses full of gold
yeah.
run up beside them and stop right in front of them.
Just as they've agreed that, despite everything being shit, when they get back to the village, they'll be friends forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just then the horses, and then they start arguing about who owns which horse.
They repeat that in the movie a few times. There's a few scenes where those two guys say, "Oh, we're friends. At least we have each other," and then immediately something happens that they find one piece that they don't want to share, and immediately start
Yes.
bickering again.
Yes.
Only to have them snatched away by the princess and co riding up to take possession of the
Hayakawa,
horses.
it's the clan Hayakawa now that comes, so it's soldiers.
Ah, that's
the
right.
princess
Yes,
is not there.
the good guys that from the province
friends,
that they
the
were heading
friends,
to.
yeah.
The guys that they were going to meet up with. Yes.
Yep.
So we bring it to a conclusion.
They have white flags.
Ah, yes.
Yamana clan.
Yamana, yeah.
Yamana clan have black flags, and the Hayakawa have white flags.
There you go.
I wonder how.
Well, it's a
if
black and
that's-
white movie. They could have been yellow.
Yeah, well, but you know how in westerns, in old westerns,
Maybe.
the good guy always has the white hat, and
Yeah,
the bad
yes.
guy has the black hat.
They
and
could have
he
been
was
red and yellow, based like
influenced
from
by
Big
John
Trouble in
Ford.
Little China.
Two of these 3 clans actually existed in reality.
That's right.
Yes.
One was fictitious.
And one was fictitious. I don't know which one was fictitious, but I'm just wondering. He might have taken that from his John Ford influences of westerns, that the good guys carry white and the bad guys
Ah,
carry
yeah,
black.
yeah.
So we wrap it up with the princess all now decked out in her princess gear.
Well, this is the 2 peasants. The 2 thieves are kneeling, head down, and then when they slowly raise their head up, extreme close up, it is revealed that in front of them is General
Rakurata.
and General
Tadokoro?
and Princess Yuki
Yep.
are all in their proper garb.
Yes.
And I think it's even mentioned that General
Rakurata.
needs to take his helmet off because the peasants can't recognise him.
Yes. I think Yuki
They think they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Says General Rakurata,
Well, all right,
you
they
look
should
even
be.
more handsome than normal. They're all resplendent. She's got new eyebrows as well, those high eyebrows
Yeah, I
that
did-
princesses have.
I saw something different, but we'll save it for the quiz.
Okay.
But yes, the once again, the theme of the film is that the 2 thieves have a massive treasure presented in front of their eyes, only to have it snatched away at the last
Yes.
minute. So they find out that they're not going to be killed and that they're in good hands and that they're about to go free, but they can't have the 200 gold pieces as promised, or a section of the 200. You can have just this little piece of
Yes.
gold.
They give him $50 and say,
Get it.
go and have a good time.
On your way, fellas.
But they have to share it.
That's right. They have
That's
to
right.
share
They
it.
only get one coin. They get one large coin, so they have to share it. And then they only display for like 0.1% of the movie. They display some sort of friendship things where they sort of say at the end,
That's pure mischief. I mean, they had the melted gold. They melted it back into coins or things. She knew she was going to give them one. She could have melted two half ones, right?
She wants them
this
to
is
learn.
This is
That's
pure
right.
viciousness. Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
lesson.
She wants them to
That's
learn.
on purpose.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
done on purpose. That she gives the 2 guys one thing that they
And
can't
then,
split.
and then they offer to let the other one carry it.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
they, which they didn't used
That's
to.
the learning that they
Which
did.
shows that finally,
Perhaps.
for 1% of the movie, they had a little bit of sharing.
And that's it. Roll credits.
Yes.
They did that interesting thing. I think Sergio Leone used to do this in film as well. The very last shot of the film was the main characters riding out of the shot. And so the camera would
Off
be...
into the sunset.
Well, the camera would be framed on the environment, and then you would see the main character leave the environment, but the camera would just stay on the environment, and then
okay.
the credits roll.
Right.
And they did the same thing in this.
Yeah, they did
where
with
they
the
just sort of walked off.
Yeah,
off
past
shot
the camera.
but the camera stayed.
Good point.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah.
Full circle.
I had a couple of things to discuss maybe just at the end before we wrap up. So a couple of questions. One was, who are the protagonists of this film? Who are the protagonists?
Well,
Well, the thieves play a little bit of that part. right? They're the
guide
troublemakers
it.
a little bit.
The thieves guide it, and they are, as I said earlier, they're really important to offset the morality of all the other people by contrasting with their immorality. But they do not change. They don't have a hero's journey. The hero's journey is the princes and potentially the general, maybe as well. Certainly the other general who switches sides
Yes.
and ends up with friends. But she changed a lot, and she became a better person for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's So the general and the princess are kind of the protagonists, and that means that the two peasants are sort of the.
Point of view characters. We see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yes. So now the hard question is, who's the bad guy?
There's no
isn't-
one identity.
No, there really isn't one person who's
It's
the
the
bad guy.
clan.
The bad guy is circumstance and greed.
Yep, and war itself.
Yeah.
I think the clan fighting that goes on.
The Yamana, what is it? The
Yama.
Yep. Yamana.
Like Yamaha, except with an N. Yamana.
Yeah,
They are the bad, but there's no person.
No.
There's
No, there's no.
person at all.
no,
Anywhere.
yeah, and even the guy that was a bad guy wasn't a bad guy.
Perhaps in the forest towards the end, the bad guy is this. In the fog, there's
Yes.
this creeping army
That's
all
why I think
around them.
it's not a person. It's the war itself.
yeah.
You know, the bad guy, the antagonist in the film is not a single person, but more.
It's more the faction.
Yeah,
That faction is named that I can't pronounce. Yamana.
Yamana. Yeah.
They're the baddie.
Yeah.
The baddie that's chasing them.
Yep.
It's and they're represented through the forest, through the
Yep.
through as the army.
The film
It's
is not
it's-
about defeating a bad guy.
No.
It's about defeating how humans behave and,
Yeah.
and honor and
So that then leads me into the next question, which is the themes in the last question, which is the themes. What are the themes? You know, because they're, like you said, it's about honor,
it's about loyalty,
honesty,
honesty, friendship,
virtues. What are the
sticking
virtues?
together in
yep.
a bad situation.
Well, they're the good things. It's also about greed.
It gives you a contrast. A
That's
big
right.
Contrast.
So against those good virtues are the bad virtues that sort of contrasted in the film and done quite well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the film. But what is our rating? Our rating system is buy, borrow, burn. So Dan, how did you rate this one?
This one is buy it on VHS and own it.
Own
and
it
then
forever.
give it to one of your mates to copy onto.
Now, it's not advice
DVD.
to the wider audience. Don't go out and buy a VHS unless you've got a VHS. Maybe buy it on Blu-ray.
No, it's definitely a movie that you've got to watch. Yep, absolutely.
I think it's good to have in the collection.
It's
I'm a
brilliant.
buy.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
Same. I would now that I've seen it, I would be on
Yep.
the buy.
Because
Yeah, definitely buy. And the way the film is, to be honest, if it was coloured and had more modern things, you would think it was a modern film.
It's the only one of his really successful films, as I read somewhere, that has not yet been remade in a modern retelling.
well, famously, Seven Samurai is the Magnificent Seven.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
almost shot for shot. It's very close. But yes, no, I can't relate this to a modern film.
Yeah, but just the way it has all those, it's got comedy, action, thrill, a little bit of darkness. It's what the later Marvel films have been trying to do. It's what Star Wars did. It's like, to me, I was amazed that this was 1958 because it feels like a modern film.
It's sharp, it's crisp, it's well filmed. It's really, it's not like other. Maybe I've seen too much 50s TV lately, but the quality isn't there.
Yeah.
And here it's the quality of the image, the sharpness of it, the quality lenses used, and
Yeah.
the lighting.
It's a great piece of filmmaking.
All filmed outdoors, and I must assume that it's all filmed in natural light. So it is a masterpiece.
Yep, it stands out. It certainly stands out. I now want to go and see more of his collection.
Same here.
I don't even think I've seen Seven Samurai start to finish before. I always thought that was the film that Lucas was influenced by, but it was this one.
I'll give you then the next suggestion, if I could. And it's this one, Yojimbo.
Yojimbo, yes. And he's the Ronin in that, yeah?
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
Just roams around the countryside.
He just basically sits in a room and wants his peace and quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
There's a
just
good scene at the start.
Gets drawn into a lot of drama throughout.
I won't get into the movie. There's a good scene at the start though, where he's at the very start of the movie, credits, very start of the movie, and he walks up to a road and there's like a left turn or a right turn, and he like picks up a stick and he throws it in the air and it kind of generally points left, so he lines himself up with the stick and he walks down the left road, It's a great movie. Yeah.
Yes, I'm keen to see more of his stuff. Right, gentlemen, we're going to jump into a bit of a quiz. We've got 10 questions.
Okay.
Couple of rules. We need rules because of Tom. Tom on one of our previous shows, and I believe it was the Buck Rogers show.
Oh, I blurted in too early.
Well, no, we had a tiebreaker between Dan and Rick,
Tony.
and Tony. Tom.
I was supposed to shut up and couldn't once more. Yeah.
Tom shoved himself into the tiebreaker, answered the question, right, and then was demanding the buzzer was unlocked for him and got in. And it was only when I was editing the bloody show that I realised, Jesus, Tom, I can see what you're doing now. So now we need rules.
This is like
I need to be muted.
it's like those peasants in that movie we just watched.
I can't help myself.
Double cross.
And he'd never learn.
I am what I am.
All right, a couple of rules. First, judge's decision is absolutely final, right? So we won't get into a tiebreaker type
doomsman.
situation like last time. The other rules are, because of our high-tech scientific device here, is that when I ask the question and you buzz in, I will say your name and then you will answer the question. If you are incorrect, you'll be locked out, and the remaining two people can buzz in, the first to buzz in. I don't have to read the question again,
Okay.
right? So once someone is locked out, you can quickly click the buzzer, and you get the next one. And if that person is wrong, then whoever's remaining can give the answer. I will mute this so it doesn't make all of the noise. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right. Question number 1. No looking at the answers here.
What if you have to pronounce names?
Okay, there's one or two in there. Lucky I'm not answering the questions. Question number 1. What was the studio's version of anamorphic widescreen for the film? Tom.
Well, that is Tohei Vision. Tohei Scope.
Can you spell that?
T-O-H-O, and then
That is correct.
Scopo Vision.
That is correct. Question number 2. Where did the slave girl come from? Rick.
I can't pronounce it. The Acme clan.
The Acme clan.
Yeah, we should give you the points.
It's
Yes.
the Roadrunner slave girl.
Akizuki.
Yep, that's it.
That's what you were meant to say.
The Princess's clan.
The Princess's Clan will do.
There you
Certainly.
go.
So that's point to Rick. Question number 3. What was strange about the death of the soldier killed by cavalry in the opening scene? Dan.
Rigor mortis set in within seconds.
Exactly.
Instant rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis.
That's correct. Instant rigor
The actor
mortis.
just had too much. He knew he just was there for the one scene, so he had to
Yes.
make it memorable.
Question number 5. At the end of the film, when the princess reveals herself to the thieves, what was missing on her face?
Oh.
Dan.
Her eyebrows were there, but they were painted on. So her eyebrows were missing off her face.
That's correct. Points go to Dan. Her eyebrows were definitely missing off. There's one of these close-ups here you'll see. They were gone.
They were gone.
Which makes me think that the earlier Spock eyebrows were probably painted on as well. Okay. Question number 6. How many horses were used to carry the gold? Rick.
3.
3 is correct. Question number 7. What pattern is on the princess's shirt throughout the film? Dan.
Crescent moon.
Nope.
Dan is locked out.
Bugger.
Tom.
The little flowers.
Correct. They were flowers.
Dang it.
Question number 8. How many gold bars did they leave the hidden fortress with? Rick.
200.
Bit of anticipation there.
That's correct. 200 is correct. Question number 9. What unfortunate accident happened to the soldier killed by the cavalry in the opening scene?
The rigor mortis guy.
The rigor mortis guy.
The unfortunate accident.
Yes, Dan, you've buzzed in first.
That he got a spear in his ass.
No, that was quite deliberate, and so you're out.
Okay.
Rick?
Got to come up with something, Rick.
Scalped.
Incorrect. It's over to you now, Tom.
He fell and stumbled.
No correct takers for this one. He got kicked in the head by the horse. And if you
Oh,
watch,
did you
At
say
the
the
end.
actor or the character?
either or
No, yeah, you
on
can see
film,
that.
either
Oh,
or.
okay.
Yeah.
Now the theory is the reason his arms are posed like that was his it was all one shot. Kurosawa shot that shot
Okay.
In one take.
in one take, all one shot.
Okay.
Now the cavalry guys stabbed him, and then rode beyond him. And then as they rode back to the two peasants, one of the horses kicked him in the head.
Yeah.
Right.
And he reacted,
Right.
and then left his arms there because he knew he was going to get in trouble if he reacted. And in mid-reaction, decided to leave his arms there,
Right. Okay.
and that's why he got the instant rigor mortis.
Right.
If you watch that sequence again,
You
you'll
can
see it.
You
You'll
can-
definitely
I
see
remember
it.
seeing it, yeah.
okay.
Just with,
It's a pity no one else saw that. Or you saw it, but you,
I,
you
I
didn't
remember
get the
seeing
question.
it, yeah, I didn't.
All right, fastest buzzer. Question number 10. What was the princess's name? Ooh, Tom's fast.
Princess Yuki.
Princess Yuki is correct.
Obakitsuki.
Now, I haven't got my little piece of paper, so I wasn't keeping score. But rest assured, to the viewers, you will have, and I might even edit in some audio for the podcast audience of who just won the quiz, because I
So
didn't.
we won't
So
know.
one of us.
Yes.
We won't know until we see
Rest
the
assured,
show.
one of you just won the quiz.
Okay.
Right
That means
now,
you
if
get
it's a
at least 3
draw,
viewers.
two of you won the quiz because we're not doing bloody tiebreakers anymore. I had to make the shit up on the spot on the last show and just ran out of questions. All right, gentlemen, that is our deep dive into Akira Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. It was an enjoyable movie. It was our first foreign film, subtitled film. And once again, I apologise to the Japanese culture and all of the Japanese people for our pronunciations, although I think we did a pretty good job.
We shared the load.
Some did a better job than others, and that would be you guys and not me. So definitely reach out and leave us a comment on any of our socials, YouTube. Dan's getting very active in preparation for this series, which will be before this. You'll be listening to this. Doing some really good videos, some kaleidoscopic short content. We're putting some quizzes up, some quiz questions, things like that, some trivia. So definitely leave some comments on our socials or on YouTube. That's it for another episode, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, it's bye for me.
Bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye, and doesn't matter what gets said post-production, I won.
What is your ethnicity? How many of you are there?